Hello and a very warm welcome to our special edition, the Question Hour show from the Parliament House complex, the show where we bring you important unstarred questions that were asked by the members of the upper house during the last session of the Rajya Sabha and the response given by the government in written format. I'm Kriti Mishra and joining me is my colleague Rajat Kain.
Thanks Kriti. Thanks our viewers for watching this edition of the show.
Now let's take our viewers through important questions and answers. And the first question in this edition is from member Balvinder Singh Bhundar, and this one is to the Ministry of Rural Development. And the member has sought the details about the centrally sponsored schemes being implemented by the ministry currently.
Well, replying to the query, the government said for development of rural areas through employment generation, strengthening of livelihood opportunities, promoting self-employment, skills of rural youth, provisions of social assistance, infrastructure development, the Ministry of Rural Development inter alia is implementing Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Schemes, also referred to as Manrega, Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Missions, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushalya Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, Shyam Prasad Mukherjee National Urban Mission and National Social Assistance Program. Well, next question was asked by member Naresh Gujral from Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Public Distribution, and he asked the current stock of wheat and rice in the FCI godowns and the details thereof.
The government has given a very comprehensive reply to this question asked by the member Naresh Gujral, and the government goes on to say that total stock of food grains in the central pool as on 11th of November 2019 was 604.82 lakh tons, consisting of 373.77 lakh tons of wheat and 231.05 lakh tons of rice. In order to liquidate the excess stock of food grains in the central pool, Government of India avails the available options of disposal of excess stock of food grains through open market sale scheme, which is also called the OMSS, and export of government to government basis, as export from public stock holding is not compliant to the WTO norms. Stock of wheat and rice are sold to bulk consumer, traders and state governments from the central pool at predetermined prices in the open market from time to time through e-tender to enhance the supply, especially to the lean season and in the deficit regions, and thereby to moderate the open market prices. 100 lakh metric tons of wheat and 50 lakh metric tons of rice has been set as a target for the sale under OMSS during the year 2019-20. In addition to this, the government allocates additional food grains to states and UTs for meeting their additional requirements like festival, drought, natural calamity, etc. as per the requirement of the specific state governments. And now let's move on to the next question that has been asked by member Rakesh Sinha, and this one is to the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. And the member has asked the government whether it is making efforts to promote indigenous games like Kho-Kho and Kabaddi.
Well, answering, the government said indigenous sports such as Kho-Kho, Kabaddi, Mallakhambh, Kalari Pattu and Gatka and Thangta are being supported by Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. Last year, 23 sports events were held in rural and indigenous games at 23 different locations across country as part of Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat program. In the events, about 1,500 players participated, and these disciplines include Squay, Kho-Kho, Kalari Payattu, Mallakhambh and Roll Ball. Under the Fit India movement, all states and union territory governments have been advised to encourage all schools to provide for regular sports, including local and indigenous game by all students. The Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports have recognized national and regional sports federation for Kho-Kho, Mallakhambh, Kabaddi, Squay and Kalari Pattu. Indigenous and traditional games vary from state to state, and the list of the same is not mentioned. And moving on, next question was asked by member Narayan Rane, and from Ministry of Textiles. He sought to know whether the government has conducted any review of the schemes that are being run for welfare of the weavers during last 3 years.
Government of India and the Ministry of Textiles have been implementing following schemes for the welfare of weavers and handloom weavers across India, and now these include Handloom Weavers Comprehensive Welfare Scheme, National Handloom Development Program, Comprehensive Handloom Cluster Development Scheme and also Yarn Supply Scheme. The government further says that Ministry of Textiles has conducted evaluation studies through independent agencies for smooth implementation of welfare and development schemes. Evaluation studies have revealed increase in working days, productivity and wages of handloom weavers. The suitable suggestions, if any, made by evaluating agency for improvement of the scheme is also incorporated. And the next question that we've picked up is from member Amar Shankar Sable, and this one is to the Ministry of Jal Shakti. And the member has asked the government about the target date of completion of National Rural Drinking Water Programme, along with the reasons for the slow pace of its implementation, especially in the drought-affected areas of Latur in the state of Maharashtra.
In the answer, the ministry said under National Rural Drinking Water Programme, which is coterminous with 14th Finance Commission, that is up to 31st March 2020, the coverage was monitored in terms of fully covered habitations, that is having provisions of minimum 40 litres per capita per day of potable water with sources at reasonable distance. Now, as reported by State of Maharashtra as on 27th November 2019, out of total 1180 rural habitations in Latur district, 922 rural habitation, which accounts to 78.13%, are FC and are, which means fully covered, and the remaining habitations are partly covered habitations, that is getting less than 40 litre per capita per day potable water. Now, as per National Rural Drinking Water Programme guidelines, states are required to prepare district-wise drinking water security plan and a toolkit for preparation of the schemes that were circulated by Government of India in 2015. Well, moving on to the last question of this edition of the show. The question was asked by member Dharmapuri Srinivas from Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, and he asked whether it's a fact the government has launched Jan Aushadhi Yojana to make available quality drugs at affordable prices.
The response given by the government is in affirmative. The government says that with the objective of making quality generic medicines available at affordable prices to all, Pradhan Mantri Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana was launched by the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, Government of India. Under this scheme, Government of India has opened dedicated retail outlets known as Jan Aushadhi Kendras, and at these stores, quality generic medicines are sold at affordable prices. As on 25th of November 2019, 5,803 Jan Aushadhi Kendras are functional across the country, and the scheme has covered 689 districts of the country, and the target is to cover all the districts of the country by 31st of March 2020. So Rajat, these were the important questions and answers in this edition of Question Hour. But on the other side, we'll have the Hindi version, Prashn Kal, with our colleagues Arvind Singh and Kriti Singh. Please don't go anywhere.